I know our speakers of today are ready to answer some few questions. If you have any doubts, you can ask them. So they're ready for that. So again, thank you once more, the VC. We're going now to go to the Premier of the province. I'm excited, so delighted to have the Premier here. And of course, the Premier is at the helm of the province, and whatever thing we do, the community will live in or report to him. I think it also creates opportunity for us to hear from the Premier. Some of those complaints that we could not hear, we are not taking it political, please, but it's academic environment and there's no politics here. We are not taking it political. It's important for us to try to integrate and collaborate with our community. If we can know exactly what the community wants us to do, then we'll be able to assist as academic institution in trying to research in addressing the problem. So it creates a good opportunity for us here to listen to somebody everybody has been running to share his experience. And of course, I'm so grateful to have the Premier here. The biography of the Premier is found on page 12 of our program, the booklet. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through that, but I know that the Premier, when I went through the biography, the Premier is someone who has been active from the youthful age right up to today, and I think he's got a lot of experience to share with us. So I welcome our Premier, Mr. David Makhura.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our program director, Professor Tengen, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Vaal University of Technology, Professor Zide, the President of the Southern African Institute for Industrial Engineering, Mr. Waldo Viljoen, academics, innovators, engineering professionals, and industry leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting us this morning to this 28th conference of the Southern African Institute for Industrial Engineering. As you all know, your profession owes its origin from the first industrial revolution at the beginning of the 1800s, which marked the age of machines and the rise of the factory system, which impacted so profoundly on the volumes and quality of production systems and processes. Up to this day, industrial engineers are preoccupied with optimizing and innovating organizational or industrial processes and systems that eliminate waste of time and resources through continuous productivity and quality improvements, and this include by sheer disruption of what existed before. Today, the world is captivated by concepts such as the Fourth Industrial Revolution, advanced manufacturing, or Industry 4.0, due largely to scientific inventions and industrial innovations coming from your profession. Whereas during the first industrial revolution, the focus was on improving manufacturing of textile and the deployment of steam engines as the primary sources of energy. Today we live in an era of the fourth industrial revolution where the most important thing is data and knowledge. And both data and knowledge are at the center not only of the future of production processes and systems, but big data and disruptive technologies have become the fulcrum of human progress and human evolution. Big data is reshaping and helping us to reimagine what life will be like. With all the challenges we face with regard to demographic changes or transitions, rapid technological change, the increasing rate of urbanization across the world, especially the developing nations, the effects of climate change, which are largely negative on populations, as well as global geopolitical or geo-economic conflicts. Shouldn't we again be looking for answers in the form of new inventions and innovations from industrial engineers? Or is it too much to look for answers from you? You, industrial engineers, and other fields of science and technology can help us protect our planet, improve the human condition, and safeguard the survival of the human species here on Earth. It is common knowledge that Gauteng province is the industrial hub of South Africa, and others call it the manufacturing workshop of sub-Saharan Africa. It is for this reason that the manufacturing sector remains a major sector in our provincial economy. And therefore, developments and innovations in industrial engineering are of great interest to me as the Premier of this province, because they can provide answers to how we can revitalize manufacturing capacity as part of our program for transformation, modernization, and reindustrialization of the Gauteng economy, while at the same time getting our province to position itself to be the leader of industrialization in our continent, in accordance with South Africa's National Development Plan. Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa in particular, and Africa in general, still have to reap the full benefits of the achievements of the industrial age by embarking on a full-scale new type of industrialization. And I want to emphasize, new type of industrialization, which is more ecologically sustainable and smart in the sense of technological advancement. For as we talk of industrialization, we cannot afford to go through the same route. The cost of industrialization on nature and natural resources are well known and well documented. Pollution, total destruction of the environment in many parts of the world. Industrialization has been very costly. So as we talk about industrialization in Africa and reindustrialization in our province, we indeed want to look at the deployment of new technologies, new processes that are largely knowledge intensive to help us avoid going through the same route or committing the same mistakes. South Africa has well-developed industrial capabilities, and I say this with a great deal of humility, because when we talk to industrial engineers and people who are in your profession, you know quite a lot. But I spend a lot of time visiting factories and firms in this province to see for myself what industrial capabilities are there, including some of these capabilities, there's underutilization of industrial capacity, including here in the Vaal. So it is very important as a country with well-developed industrial capabilities, world-class research institutions, and advanced innovation ecosystems that can help the rest of our continent to leapfrog to the fourth industrial revolution, to know what we have and not start afresh, and build on what we already have. We have significant advanced manufacturing capacity. We are in the league of Industry 4.0. And what we need now is to deliberately enhance these capacities through a set of incentives. Some of this has to do with incentivizing our universities and industries that are investing in R&D. As I said earlier on, during my visits to various companies and universities in our province, I've seen what we are capable of doing. We are located in Africa, in the southern part of our continent, a continent that has enormous potential because of the resources it has, but a continent that has got huge gaps as well. Africa's greatest potential is that it's growing and urbanizing youthful population and its rich natural resources. As South Africa, we need to deploy our industrial capabilities and gear our energies, particularly those of our universities, towards unlocking this full potential of our continent, firstly, by training and skilling Africa's youth. For the youth of our continent can only be a resource when they have skills. And by deploying the industrial capabilities I have referred to earlier, and the knowledge and skills towards unlocking the mineral resources and processing these mineral resources in our continent. And that's what it means to industrialize in our continent. And what better position is South Africa in than to be the hub of leading this industrialization of our continent. As I said, we already have enormous capabilities, and I'll return to this point later. South Africa must place innovation, research and development at the center of its industrial policy, economic development and social policies. This requires major investments in new industrial infrastructure. And again, talking to you, you know exactly what it means to build and invest in industrial infrastructure. To invest in R&D capacity and skills development so that our continent and our country are not at the margins of the new age of the dawn of the information society and knowledge economy. As Gauteng Province, we strive to be that province which has a more inclusive and ecologically sustainable economy that is knowledge-based and innovation-driven. I want to emphasize knowledge-based and innovation-driven, which means that investing in skills and the training of our youth, particularly black youth and young women, is a critical strategy of economic inclusion if we are building a knowledge-based economy. If we are not doing so, we are not just excluding those because they were excluded in the past century under apartheid. If we are not investing in our youth, we are also building a new form of exclusion. Because if they do not have the skills, if young people don't have the skills, and we are building a knowledge-based economy, they are permanently going to be excluded. So it will be the next generation of exclusion, not just the past, but also the future. So the best way to include our youth is to invest in them. And doing so means investing in the capabilities of our universities to continue to train high-caliber graduates in all fields, including in the areas of science and technology. As a province, we want to reaffirm that industrialization is not possible without state-of-the-art infrastructure and appropriate skills. So we can continue to call for Africa's industrialization. But if we are not building appropriate infrastructure, and if we are not investing in the youth of our continent, which is the greatest resource we have, we cannot have industrialization. Infrastructure and the skills are critical drivers of industrialization efforts anywhere in the world. Through our schools of specialization, And the partnerships we have with industry leaders, we are investing in the new type of skills for the new type of economy. We are also rolling out major infrastructure projects across the 5 development corridors of our province in partnership with municipalities, and in many areas in partnership with the private sector through private sector investment. And those areas of infrastructure include water and sanitation, renewable energy, ICT and broadband connectivity, public transport systems, and new cities and mega human settlements, including 2 in the Vaal, new industrial parks, science parks, and agri-parks. Developing the necessary skills, expertise, industrial capabilities, research institutions, infrastructure, and finding appropriate financing mechanisms. It's a very crucial component of building an ecosystem for innovation-driven and knowledge-based inclusive economies. Over the past 3 years, we have invested more than 30 billion rands in infrastructure that I have referred to earlier on. And over the next 3 years, we will invest another 43 billion rands in infrastructure, covering different areas of this. We have 412 infrastructure projects that are on our infrastructure register, and these projects are at various stages of development. So we need the skills that you have to deliver these projects on time and on budget. And that's part of the key areas of partnership that we're looking forward to have with the Institute and its members. We need to ensure that the money that I've referred to goes exactly where it matters most to improve the quality of life of the people of our province, because the lifeblood of any modern economy is good infrastructure. Now, one of the major things about infrastructure projects all over the world, the bigger they are, the more potential for corruption they have in infrastructure projects. So it's good to invest in infrastructure, to put huge resources there, but this money can go to waste. So again, we need the skills of people in your sector and other sectors, including auditors and accountants in our province. We are working with them very well. And all these infrastructure projects go through what we call the open tender system. Transparency is absolutely important so that there are no scandals about money has been lost, stolen, and put in wrong places, enriching few individuals instead of going where it matters most. So in our province, all these infrastructure projects go through what we call the open tender system, where adjudication over who gets appointed in these projects is something that is watched and scrutinized openly, publicly, so that there's clarity. If someone has got the tender to deliver the Gauteng, there must be no question that they came to the Premier at night and gave the Premier some brown envelope. It must be clear to citizens that that company or that group of people, this group of professionals got this job because they are able to do the job. And that includes black companies. That includes black construction and engineering companies, because that's part of our policy, it's part of our mandate. It's part of our constitutional mandate, redress. And that includes companies run by women. They don't need to be done a favor at night. It must be done in the open. That's a company owned by women. They got the job. They will be able to do the job at this level. Maybe they, at another level, it's a bigger player who would be able to do that job. So all these things need to be done openly in a way that's transparent so that there's no corruption, which is often the case with major infrastructure projects. Some of these projects include the expansion of the Gauteng in our province, and over the next few months we will acquire 48 additional coaches And the Gauteng is one of the best infrastructure stories that we have as a country. Successful, delivered well. You haven't had any story about the Gauteng, funny stories about it. It runs well, and that's why it's full all the time. And that's why we are adding additional coaches. We are now going to be expanding. In addition to the 48 additional coaches, we have completed a feasibility study of expanding the Gauteng to other routes where it wasn't before, including new economic nodes, but not in the Val, I must say, Professor. Because in the Val, you have a rail system. All you need is new trains, not a new rail line. You have a rail line, yes, upgrading of that, but you need new trains. They're not the ones that are bigger than the rail. You need proper new trains as part of the modernization. But there are areas in our province where there is no public transport systems, no rail line, and the Gauteng will go there. Part of what it does is to transform the spatial landscape of Gauteng. Create new economic nodes and new settlements. People must live new cities, new nodes. People must work closer to where they live. And in there, as well as part of doing additional infrastructure investments, we also bring in additional, it must be closer to existing institutions of learning. So we taking public transport systems also closer to our universities, because the university populations require investment in public infrastructure as well. Some of that public infrastructure also would include in our new nodes, including the new city here, Vaal River City, that would include student accommodation. In partnership with the universities, we are also making provision in our new human settlements and new cities, student accommodation, because the universities are not coping with this. I know, Vice Chancellor, you have a big problem of student accommodation at VUT. The students are staying in place. They are staying in large numbers. They are essentially destroying the settlements in the Van der Bijl area and creating this overcrowding. The infrastructure can't cope. We know all that. That's why some of the investments we are dealing with is sanitation and water infrastructure, which is pretty important. We are also investing in broadband and ICT infrastructure to connect the different parts of our province. You all know that Johannesburg and Tshwane and Ekurhuleni are better connected. But the Vaal, the level of investment in broadband here, fiber optics, is limited. And parts of our province are not as connected as others. So the universities are investing themselves. They're investing in ICT infrastructure, but we are working with them to connect the rest of the province and working with private sector partners. Where there's already broadband, we don't need to do that. We just do what's called the last mile. We focus on the last mile for service delivery to connect communities, but also to make sure that we connect institutions to create this ecosystem that enhances the competitiveness of our province and the deployment of new technologies to solve both service delivery and problems as well as to create new economic activity and new industries. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is important that as we raise these issues, to come back to the fact that we rely heavily on your profession as government to help us drive this vision of a rollout of infrastructure everywhere in our province, to modernize our province and place it at the cutting edge of the knowledge-based and innovation-driven economy. Yours is a profession that can help us eliminate waste, reduce time, including the cost of materials, and how much energy and other resources are used in these areas that I have referred to earlier on. So you can help us improve execution and save a lot of money and deliver these projects much, much quicker than it could be done if we just follow the logic of government bureaucracy. The logic of government bureaucracy is very frustrating. And any one of you who has not been in government, you have not really worked where things are not happening. It can be very frustrating. I've not been in government for long, but I now know why things take so long not to happen in government, and that we have to be ungovernment to work with the private sector. Because in business, time is money. If things take too long, business people will move on to the next destination. They will move on to the next jurisdiction. If bureaucracy is the thing and people don't appreciate that things need to be done quickly and that things can't just be costly for the sake of it and sometimes for the sake of enriching others, it is something that we are working with to break the back of bureaucracy in this province. So you have close to 4,000 registered members of the SAIIE, and this is an invaluable resource that can help us as not just the provincial government, but the whole of government to help government work better. So we appreciate your interest in the work we are doing. And for many years, the private sector has derived lots of benefits by relying on industrial engineers to get their projects to happen. And this is time that we in government do the same. Program Director, it is quite heartening to learn that following its long evolution, this profession of industrial engineering today boasts a number of women scholars and professionals in its ranks, drawing inspiration from pioneers such as Professor Susan Adendorf, the first woman to hold a PhD in industrial engineering in South Africa. It is indeed an opportunity for us to join you. We certainly want to see a lot more women in your profession because they too have a major contribution to make. We also appreciate that the University of Pretoria, which is based in our province, one of our very good universities, introduced the first industrial engineering graduate course in 1961 and produced the first industrial engineering graduates in 1964. To date, the University of Pretoria produces the largest number of graduates industrial engineers in our continent. Equally important is the work done by Wits University, another important university in our province, which produced the first black African industrial engineering graduate in 1984. I certainly know that there's also very important work taking place at the University of Johannesburg, Tshwane University of Technology, and the Northwest University in areas such as manufacturing and advanced manufacturing and industrial engineering capabilities that cut across many specific areas. To return to the University of the Vaal University of Technology, I visited your university earlier this year, Professor Zide, and was amazed by the work that is being done on innovation and technology transfer, especially with regard to agro-processing, leather and shoe making, and the deployment of 3D technology in advanced manufacturing. Earlier on, when I was saying to you that we as South Africans must be very proud that we have pockets of what's called Industry 4.0. We have those capabilities. We are not just reading about the fourth industrial revolution. It is taking place here. We just need to escalate it. We need to redirect all the efforts so that we are not left behind. And we must be driving this for the sake of our continent and link up with different universities in our continent, like the University of Ghana and professionals, but also industry, in terms of industry. And when I visit the different parts of the continent, I was in Ghana in May, and in Nigeria in June. I also make sure when we go with business leaders, especially in the manufacturing sector. Manufacturing is very close to my heart. We go with them to different parts of the continent and get them to meet their counterparts. And we go there to tell the story that South Africa already has certain capabilities, that most of which are underutilized. And some of those areas have to do with heavy engineering capabilities that we have here, including producing locomotives and wagons. And I was talking to the CEO of Transnet last night about what we are able to do here. I visited DCD here in the Val, an engineering company, and some of the engineering companies, including in defense and aerospace. South Africa has enormous capabilities. But our universities are doing they are not just doing research, cutting edge research. They are now beginning to have in themselves, especially the universities of technology, they are doing some advanced manufacturing themselves of some products, an amazing thing. That's why they need partnership with industry, a strong partnership with industry, but they also need strong partnership with government so that we can move our economy to the next level, as I have said. So I'm very proud of the work our universities are doing. I would like to visit many more universities that I have not visited. Are there people from TUT here? TUT Tshwane? I want to come there. I've heard lots of stories about your innovation capabilities. I haven't been there. Northwest University here? Yeah, I want to come. You are here. You are just next door. You're just next door here. I know the Vice Chancellor would have loved that you just change your name to the University of the Northwest at the Vaal University of Technology. You are here. VETS, I go to VETS on many areas of research, and UJ. So this, I would like to particularly ensure that we work much closer together. We have recently signed a memorandum of agreement with vice chancellors of all Gauteng-based universities. I must apologize to the Northwest University. You are not part of that agreement. So all the Gauteng-based universities, we have a memorandum of agreement with them. Professor Zide was there. We met with the vice chancellors. On what areas? Firstly, investment in infrastructure. Public infrastructure, including broadband, public transport, as I said earlier on, accommodation, and facilities. Because universities are part of our cities' ecosystems. When we plan development of our cities, we must plan knowing what the vision and the long-term plans of our university is in that area, and how do we make sure we accommodate them. Secondly, on innovation and R&D. Universities are major drivers of innovation and R&D. This knowledge-based economy will not happen if we don't work closely with our universities. So that's another important area that our memorandum of agreement addresses, that we're going to work together with our universities. Thirdly, the issues of skills development, on the training of our youth, including, of course, you know, we're not responsible as a provincial government for universities, so I never pretend that I can bring money when a university is asking for more money. Please don't ask for money from me. But I can bring a lot of things other than money, and that includes a rollout of infrastructure in a way that already covers you. So you know, on this we are already covered. The provincial government is planning this infrastructure in our area. We don't have to invest money in there. We must deploy money in research and in training in that area, because we are already covered. So we're going to be doing planning together. What's the long-term vision of Gauteng province in line with our national development plan? So we get the universities, all of them, to share with us their long-term plans. They have strategic plans over the next 20 years. What are they planning to do? Expansion new schools, new areas of research, researchers, and then where are they going to be putting up new infrastructure, accommodation? And we say to them, we will provide the following infrastructure there. Don't worry about that. So that's joint planning, which is very, very important. So this is very good for our province. I therefore wish to extend, as I conclude, extend an invitation to the Southern African Institute of Industrial Engineering to partner with us as we work with key industry leaders to revitalize manufacturing in our province and position Gauteng as the leading hub of the fourth industrial revolution in our continent. And I'm saying this is not just a claim. It is something that can be backed with facts. There's no part of the continent that is so advanced with regard to the potential ushering in of Africa into the fourth industrial revolution than this hub is, with all the advantages I've referred to earlier on. We need to work together with you and the private sector to revitalize areas that have deindustrialized, such as the West Rand, due to mining, the decline of mining, the Vaal Triangle, due to the collapse of the steel industry. You know the ArcelorMittal ISCO story. This area has deindustrialized quite significantly. But the new technologies that are there, the work that our universities and industry leaders are doing, and as I say, I was here earlier this year. I didn't only visit the university, I visited the industries here in the Vaal, working with some of the industry leaders. We need to work together to reindustrialize and revitalize these areas. International experience reassets and reaffirms the view that it's only through mutually beneficial partnership between government, industries, and the universities that we can revitalize declining manufacturing areas. And this you can check in the north of the United Kingdom, where there's been successful revitalization of the manufacturing sector. It's largely because of this partnership, the triad between the universities, government, local government, regional governments, and industry, that this is possible. Anywhere in the world, in the areas in the United States where there's been significant deindustrialization. Again, the story is the same. If you go to Asia, areas that have experienced deindustrialization, it's through that partnership that we can get manufacturing back on course and not only revitalize old manufacturing, new manufacturing, manufacturing 4.0, advanced manufacturing, which is our common passion between us and your sector. I therefore want to wish you well as you have deliberations at this 28th conference and wish you success, and I will keenly await the outcomes of the resolutions of this meeting and of course look forward to working with you in helping to position our province well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that wonderful speech, the Premier. As a token of appreciation from SAIIE, we have that little gift that comes from the bottom of our heart. I was quite impressed hearing from the Premier of the province, and I think he's touched on a lot of things that has made me smile today. I'm going to take some few things from what he said. I just re-emphasize them here. I know you might have noted a lot of things, and that is the reason why we created opportunity for someone like him to come and speak to us. Listening, he said that the provincial government has earmarked a couple of projects to invest billions of rands on. that is on the side of the provincial government. Then the expectation from us is that the skills that we have are needed to realize those projects. And the Premier concluded by saying that he is extending, or the provincial government, when I say he, I mean the provincial government, is extending an invitation to us to work with the government in order to realize a lot of projects or address couples of problems that exist in the society. I think this is interesting. The government is ready to work with us. The government is also identifying the projects, so the skills that we have, we also have to try to deploy that in order to assist the government. That comes back to the partnership. And one key thing, another key thing that he mentioned was that it's important for us and the government to invest on knowledge development and, of course, investing on the youth. So he ended up by saying that in allocating resources to realize those projects that the government has earmarked, the key things that would determine the decision will be transparency. So it comes back to the fact that we have to invest seriously on knowledge development so that we should be able to, if there is any tender, we shouldn't say we are blacks. We should be able to be subjected to the same process. So I'm so grateful. Thank you very much. Our open opportunity for questions to the Premier, if any person has anything to ask.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Professor Lucas Snyman from UNISA, just next door here, south of Johannesburg. I actually made a keynote a lecture yesterday morning exactly on some of these topics about transferring skills from the university to the communities and to the local industry. And I'm so glad to hear your talk today, which also align with what our lines of thinking at UNISA. And also we gathered here as a big forum from all over South Africa with all the major universities and the industries. So this is an excellent forum for jointly addressing challenges and to look for answers. So my proposal or my question is, why can't we not build on this initiative? And what came to my mind is that if you talked about the local development, each region has unique necessities, right? And if we could create local forums between universities and industries and government, local government, I think if we can introduce these local forums and get together, address the needs of local areas, jointly sit around tables, look at what funding we have available, what plans are at universities, what skills are there, what plans for skills transfer. I think we could, what we as academics talk about, quantum leaps, you know, it comes from the physics, that you can make huge progresses in short time. So that is my proposal or suggestion or question.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Stefan Blom. I'm an industrial engineer from the industry. My question to the Premier is just, or more concern about the sustainability of the industrial engineering field as well as the greater engineering field in our country. We've spoken a lot now about tertiary education and university level. My concern is schooling level, especially public schooling level, and the quality or the deteriorating quality of maths and science education in public schools, which is the underpinning of the engineering tertiary qualification. The Premier mentioned that a university like the University of Pretoria has been churning out the most industrial engineers in sub-Saharan Africa, but the in my opinion, the gap between the requirement for qualifying for such education and the quality of science and maths education on school level has increased and is continuing to increase. So that is for me a great concern. And in my view, the public or the private schools, which is only affordable by a select few, are the only schools which has young or the youth qualifying for these universities. So it's good and well we're talking about tertiary education, but what is being done about lifting the quality of science and maths education at schooling level to the previously and even currently at disadvantaged people, the majority of the youth? What can be done to lift that so that we grant more youth the opportunity to qualify for tertiary education?
I would like to appeal that maybe I did not indicate to you earlier that the questions might not only be directed to the Premier alone. We've got two speakers. Maybe you also have some questions that you will want to ask to the Vice Chancellor or to both the Vice Chancellor and the Premier at the same time, so feel free to do that. We have another question.
Good morning. My name is Ngaka from UNISA. Premier, I'm very happy to hear about your passion for manufacturing and for collaboration. I just have two questions. One is, I work with hospitals, and I know the Department of Health does not have the capacity to optimize operations in hospitals. There is a dedicated department, but they don't have the capacity. Now, when UNISA tried to capacitate them, it seems there are policy issues that do not allow them to contract universities to help them, and I don't know how. Second thing is, because of the environment, the very unionized environment in hospitals, if you try and form a tripartite structure with hospitals, government, and universities, or hospitals, business, and universities, there is also an issue because all hospitals have boards, and those boards have their own thinking around these issues. So my question is, how do I leverage the memorandum of understanding that we have between the universities and the government to actually help us do some work in healthcare? Thank you.
I think three questions or three persons have spoken or asked questions. There's another person there.
Thank you. My name is Richmore, and I'm from Stellenbosch University. Well, I'm well pleased to hear the Premier that at least he appreciates industrial engineering discipline. Many times when someone asks you that which engineering are you doing, and you say industrial, they look so confused, say, what is industrial engineering? But my question is, I would like to ask the Premier if in their provincial structures, are they also collaborating with industrial engineers to improve the service delivery, like what he has mentioned before?
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to give opportunity to the Premier to answer the questions, but also I would like to maybe ask one question to the VC, so that we should actually have the conversation that we intend to have. Because I think with conversation, we can actually create a lot of room for improvement. In the Premier speech, Mr. Vice Chancellor, he indicated that the fibers, the optical fibers are well developed in other parts of the province, and it's not well developed in the VAR region. Being the champion of the region in terms of capacity building and research, I wish to ask whether we should be thinking of taking a message from that statement, possibly in order to start thinking of how to focus our research drive. So the question is there any message we can take home from such a statement? The second one was that the Bar region does not need new railways or rails, they need new trains. But sometimes, from the research perspectives, someone will say that the trains are getting old because the rails are not good rails. And that is the conversations that we should have. So again, do we have a message to take home? Thank you very much. So let me open the floor now to the Premier and the VC to have some words with us.
Thank you, Professor. I'm very happy to know that the VAL has a lot of advocates so that it is not left out or left behind. Professor Simon has raised a very important issue. Let me first say that UNISA is part of the MOU and is participating quite well in there, in the MOU with us, and UNISA has got certain capabilities I didn't refer to, which are quite important. The issue you raising, Prof, about proper coordination and forums, that's the experience everywhere in the world. If you go to Boston, everywhere where you have catalytic innovation and ecosystems, if you go to Boston, as I say, you know Boston is that knowledge hub. There's very strong coordination. You go to Amsterdam, very strong coordination between the authorities on one side, your regional and local government, the university system as a whole, and industry leaders. So this tripartite is so crucial. And the point you were making that at one level we should encourage that all over the country. I know there's Stellenbosch here, Stellenbosch? Yes, I know you come from another province. So, and I only spoke about what we're doing in our province. At one level, Prof was saying that we need this to be done by all universities all over the country in different places. But I also know Stellenbosch works very well with the local municipality. Yes, and then science and technology department. So, but my approach is that, yes, there's a need to have national coordination, but these things need to really happen closer to where the ecosystems are. So we don't have too many meetings at the top, but we have forums, as you were suggesting, Prof, that bring government, universities, and industry together. That's why here in the VAL, Professor Zide, I will really suggest that you and NWU should be the leader, because you are already working with industry in suggesting the Citibank Forum of the nature that Professor Simon was saying. We should do the same in Tshwane, where at a metro level to bring all the institutions there. And the good thing is that Gauteng provincial government and the municipalities have a common approach to what industrial strategy we have for each area. So, for example, we know the VAL has deindustrialized. That year we have to rebuild the old manufacturing base, but we also have to create a new economy around leisure and tourism in the VAL, because you've got the VAL Dam. There is no better thing. Shipping, there's a number of boats here I see every weekend. People are driving, come to the VAL. A little bit of rudimentary shipping, shipbuilding and repair industry, and then linked to that is leisure and tourism. And agriculture is a very important part of the VAL economy. So both universities that are located here, therefore, need to help focus on the key sectors. And I'm saying this is what everywhere in the world, the focus is what is your competitive advantage with regard to what type of industries you already have, what capabilities your universities have, research, and other capabilities to support that part of the area. Of course, they are global, they are national institutions. So through the forum, we sit there and look at the local development plan of the municipality, and then look at the regional plan, and look at the plans of these institutions, so that even the institutions must optimize. I know for industrial engineers, optimize is the word for you. So they must optimize the deployment of their resources to revitalize that local economy. In that sense, as I say, Stellenbosch does this very, very well. To build a competitive industry, including the wine industry, but also, I know that Stellenbosch is competing with Gauteng in the tech and knowledge base. I know you are doing that secretly. You don't want us to know, but we know. You are attracting some of the technology startups. I now know they are located there in Stellenbosch. Renewable energy stuff. You're getting global ones. But we're working with you in that space. And Cape Town would have some other capabilities as UCT. But locating this collaboration at the lower level will much be more optimal for me. That's the point I'm making through the forums where industry, I work very well with industry leaders in here and in this province, sector by sector. We do sector by sector relationships. We have the automotive industry, we have the capital equipment manufacturers, we've got just the manufacturing, breaking it down into area by area, sector by sector, depending on where they are located. And I also work well with all the mayors. The mayor of Tshwane, because Tshwane is the hub of automobile manufacturing, but is also a key leader of research, R&D, and innovation. 30 years ago, Tshwane was just an administrative capital. Its own economy was just about the fact that it is the seat of government. But it is evolving out of that. Deliberately, we're also building there in Tshwane the aviation and aerospace sector there in Centurion. So the universities there, Pretoria University, UNISA, TUT, the university system there needs to have a good understanding that we are located in an area where the following economic sectors are being incentivized to grow. And this is the capabilities we have in our departments to support that. And even go global in some of this. You may find that you in the globe, you can build the most competitive capability, globally competitive capability of that sector by supporting it. So basically, Prof, what I'm saying is that I agree with you that through that we can achieve, we can leapfrog, quantum leaps. But it needs deliberate and optimal allocation of resources and capabilities, not duplication. We must say the university does the following well, government does the following well, or we must help, the university must help government to do these things well. Regulation, approval of plans, that's what part of our service delivery mandate. And we need universities to help us build. We are cutting red tape in Gauteng. I work very closely with Premier Zille on the red tape, reducing red tape model. Cape Town, you will know. Me and the Premier work very well together. On things we do well, she comes to me and says, Premier, can I learn something from you? On things she does well, I go to her and say, Premier, can I learn something from you? But part of the secret of this is really to structure this at municipal level. What I can say, unfortunately, is that when there's change of government, things take a bit of time to go back to where they were. I know in the early phase, University of Pretoria, UNISA, we're working very closely with the city of Tshwane. I have a very good relationship with the mayor of Tshwane. When I see him, I'm going to say to him, just pull back the universities into our strategy for the region. Economic strategy, social cohesion, but also how universities can support us deliver on our mandate, which is a point that was raised, I'll come back to it, was raised last day. The sustainability of industrial engineering and engineering in general, I definitely agree that if the schooling system is weak as it is weak now, it is undermining not just engineering, but our leapfrog into the fourth industrial revolution. We will be left behind. Maths and science, if the foundation phases are not strong enough. I can only talk about what we are doing as a province to really, we're working quite a lot in ensuring that at least in our, that's why I can only talk about not national issues, but provincial issues. We're working quite a lot, including in introducing, we're working with industry in introducing what we call schools of specialization. In addition to just general schools, it's like going back to, you remember we used to have in the past technical schools. And not just the TVET colleges, but at high school level. So for every region in Gauteng, we now have 12 of those schools. Some of them are agriculture-oriented, depending on the nature of the region and agro-processing, to align particular skill sets to, for example, in Tshwane, we're working with the automotive industry in the northern areas of Tshwane around Roslyn and Soshanguve to make sure that even industry supports and help us to address the deficit, teaching deficit. Because if you want to understand what the problem is in the teaching side, especially for maths and science in our schools. And that deficit, we are not about to overcome it now. That's why we have a partnership with different industry leaders. The capital equipment sector in Germiston, we are working with them with the schools in Ekurhuleni for the area of maths and science. We have a joint program together with we bring learners at the technical school in Germiston, where industry leaders also help come, and to help get these young people to understand. If you want to proceed on this career path, it is important that you have this set of skills. So the way to address this needs a combination of measures, but I definitely agree with you. And in our province, I think we are making interventions in various schools through what we call schools of specialization to deal with this backlog, and in some instances, yes, moving back. Optimizing delivery using universities. I know that just for the sector, because of the nature of industrial engineering, you are looking constantly at improving delivery of products, of services by re-engineering processes and systems. That's the nature of what you do. And it's true that government, you can help us a lot just to re-engineer government. Al Gore used to talk about reinventing government. But government is a very resistant institution. I wish you know that. If there's an institution that resists change, screaming and kicking, it is government. Including on procurement systems of government. And at that point, again, is being raised there. Why is it so difficult for universities and not private sector? I don't think there's a problem there. But public institutions like universities that are dealing with this to help government to deliver, whether it's in the area of healthcare. If you think of the Sefako Makhatu University, which is a specialist healthcare university, because of what the universities do, why is it so difficult for universities to be brought into the procurement systems? to be able to help deliver on that. I can tell you, areas of procurement are also an area that are highly regulated. But in Gauteng province, because we have introduced what we call the open tender system, maybe through that partnership with the universities, because I don't sit in the tender process as the Premier. I can't. It must be done by officials specifically trained. Through that MOU, we may need to go further and identify what areas of service delivery universities themselves can participate in, because they have those capabilities. Sometimes much better than some of the businesses. So I'll support that a lot. I'll give you an example. We have a partnership with the University of Johannesburg on the delivery of rooftop solar PV panels. And Stellenbosch knows this secret. Stellenbosch knows the secret because the university does something with Stellenbosch on this. The University of Johannesburg has got some of the most advanced in the world capabilities in the area, new thin film cells for PV panels. So they are a public institution, you know. And we said, when you have a public institution that has got capabilities, why should you go to a business? Even if it means that university, out of that, they will come in and structure that as part of. I know Stellenbosch has got also partnerships in many areas. So we need partnerships with our universities to deliver on our goals. That includes on broadband. But if you ask me, will it be easy? I'll tell you, because procurement systems are so rigid. The first thing the officials of government do when you say, we have public institutions that can do this, let's accommodate them in the process. They think that you are bringing your friends. Okay, maybe that is a better way to think. But sometimes because normally procurement processes is an area where corruption happens. When you bring public institutions, they will not make a cut. They'll not get their cut. So part of the resistance I've come to understand is that public institutions that can do very good work, even in operations management, just restructuring of government systems and processes of delivery, which institutions, you are studying this, you have institutes, you have units in our universities whose day-to-day work, you have professors who are teaching even public procurement for that matter. Every day, how to do it optimally, how to do it purposefully. There will always be resistance from government bureaucrats. But I am saying that through our agreement with the universities, this issue of drawing in universities in the area of improving service delivery can be done beyond infrastructure. It can be done beyond infrastructure. So it is something that we will take up with the vice chancellors in the meeting without us making procurement decisions, because I don't want us to be caught on the wrong side of the law so that I get accused. The Premier and Professor Zide have agreed on a tender even before it went to the tender committee. Or Mr. Nuku from UNISA, Naka from UNISA and the Premier agreed that UNISA will do this even before it went to the tender. I can't do that. I will be in the front pages of newspapers. Even if it's not corruption, it would not be procedural. But I agree entirely. I think that also links up with the question from the colleague from Stellenbosch that I agree with that about collaboration on service delivery. Professor Tengen, I sympathize with you on the rail situation for the VAL. I think we should modernize the rail line together with Transnet and PRASA, invest in the new rail line. But I certainly know that it will be more expensive to build a Gauteng line, new line, here, to come here where you already have a rail line. You know, investments, optimization, you know, investments about that. If you do something where something already exists, you are not optimizing. So all we need to do is to, yes, the people of the Vaal needs a modern public transport system, efficient, reliable, like the whole of Gauteng. That is the starting point. How we deliver that, we've got to work together. So I think what's exciting from the inputs that have been made here for me is that we can be where the rest of the world is. And innovation, knowledge-based economies, regions, and cities in the world are more purposeful for them to achieve that position of competitiveness. They are more purposeful in coordinating themselves. And all the players must be moving, sharing the vision, moving in the same direction. That's what we are trying to do in Gauteng province. Moving in the same direction, sharing the vision. So working with you as SAIIE will be useful in whatever way you may decide in the course of the week. We will appreciate working with you and plugging you into this. Your capabilities are important. I'm sorry I took much longer in answering questions, but I'm also excited that you have lots of interest in what I have said. But I'm here, I'm not leaving. I want to listen to the next set of presentations as well. I'll be here until lunchtime. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Premier, for the response. So we also listened to the Vice Chancellor of the Vaal University of Technology.
Okay, thank you very much, Program Director. I will just add on what the Premier has already responded to in terms of the maths and science being very poor at the basic level. Indeed, the Premier is correct, and the colleague over there who asked the question is quite correct. Let me just explain what we are also doing at the Vaal University of Technology. We have come to realize that it is not only a government problem or a government challenge, but that we as universities should equally make some contribution as to how best we could improve maths and science. Because if we don't, then we are inheriting a problem that comes from basic education. So at the Vaal University of Technology, we have summer schools as well as winter schools. For instance, right now in July, was it July or June? Yeah, we had, we collaborated with the Department of Education of the Gauteng province, Citybang area, where we had a number of schools that came particularly for science and maths, because we felt very strongly that as a university, pointing fingers, all the time at government, this and this, let us equally make some contribution. Because at the end of the day, if we don't make some contribution in improving maths and science, these are the children that come to us and we inherit a problem. And so we can try and do something to alleviate and make certain that we're moving in the right direction. So my suggestion would be that universities across the country should work in collaboration with the Department of Education of the different provinces in improving, because quite evidently, teaching, and I don't want to say at tertiary level, but certainly at basic level, is not at the level where we would want it to be. And so we, as universities, should equally take part of the responsibility in improving. So that's my suggestion. The second point, I think the Premier also touched on it, Thomas, about the broadbanding. I think it is already being rolled out here, but the challenge that we as a university I think it is important that we always become front runners and not wait until there's a problem before we can react. I think the most important thing is that we need to be proactive all the time. And so the Dean will tell you that I always say, colleagues, we've got professionals in our university. Why go out and appoint consultants to do A, B, C, and D, when in fact we've got expertise within the university? And so that is something that evidently needs to be done. The Premier has spoken about improving the rail system. What we need is an efficient and improved public transport. I fully agree. But in agreeing, let me just mention one thing, Premier. You spoke about PRASA and you spoke about Transnet. I want to make a declaration that my son is working for PRASA. So I don't want any word to go out there and say, Zide is pushing for PRASA because the son is working for PRASA. No, I don't want to go that route. It must be open, and so that is it. But the last point, the Premier, I'm happy you also spoke about shipbuilding and repair. About a month ago, I visited PE, and my son is in some business there, my young last-born son, whom Gidi knows very well. And so I had to have a conversation with a company there that is in the boat construction. And I said that, look, because they wanted to have a collaboration with NMMU, with NMU now, Nelson Mandela University. But of course, I think NMU was trying to do some other business. And so I said, we would be happy to discuss any collaboration with that company so that the engineering faculty can actually come on board. So we will be paying them a visit, because what we want to see happening is to make certain that the skills that we have as a university do complement whatever skills the private sector has. And finally, I'm happy to see my former colleagues from UNISA. Welcome to the VAL. Thank you.